trim. So I was
Beautiful.
like, I didn't realize how when we moved the camera over to this side, I was like, gosh, you can really see the little stage.
I'm doing this because when I put this down, I'm going to start talking like we're
Oh,
live. Okay. You
all
ready?
right.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us for LinkedIn Live with Lance today. And today we've got Jennifer Sutton, the CEO and founder of Bright Marketing. And Jennifer, I
Yeah.
am so glad you're here today.
Well, I'm excited to be here. This is fantastic. Talking about my favorite subject.
Yeah, right. I'm excited about it as well. It's going to be, um, this topic is very dear to my heart because um, I think that for so many business owners, you're so focused on getting the business going,
Hmm.
and somewhere in there the business gets going, and then the job description sort of starts to change a little bit.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I'm excited to talk about that today with you.
Yeah. Well, and I said, like, where I've learned through my own owner journey, but also where Bright sits and what we've learned over close to 15 years of sitting inside of companies is marketing has taught me more about leadership than marketing. Because we've learned that we sit at the intersection of branding, marketing, culture, systems building, and what we call really organizational psychology.
Okay.
Um, because most people think, okay, we help companies with branding, marketing, and advertising.
Yeah.
And what we've learned is marketing really exposes leadership.
There you go. That's
Branding
right.
really exposes leadership. Because if leadership lacks clarity, marketing and branding is scattered. If leadership is divided, like there's not who we are, like clarity and alignment on who we want to be, the brand is divided.
Mm,
And if the culture is unhealthy, then customers will eventually feel it.
that's
It
right.
will get to your customers. So, marketing, as we always say, and we've had to kind of sit in this, like, expand kind of where we sit because when we were just doing marketing, campaigns, advertising programs, it signals much bigger problems way upstream. And where we've had to say, okay, if we really are a good marketing company, we're really about acceleration and about moving a business forward. And so marketing really uncovers signals and symptoms of where leadership is really the cause of a unhealthy or an unscalable business or a business that is struggling with acceleration.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
We're going to come back around to that.
Yeah, yeah.
So, everybody who's joining us, you guys have already done a great job of commenting on here. So,
Oh,
you already
okay.
know the rules. You have to just say hello, start talking to us, because otherwise, I will lose my mind because I love live things. I love talking to people. I'm enjoying talking to Jennifer. I'm going to talk to Jennifer. I'm going to talk to you guys. You're going to talk to Jennifer. This is going to be great. So, we've already got Ellie's quoting you already. So we've got
Oh,
Ellie putting a note in here. It says, branding exposes leadership because if leadership lacks clarity, marketing and branding are scattered. Without clarity of who we want to be, the brand is divided.
that's right.
Good stuff. So there you go. You're already getting cited. So,
Oh, I
so
love
Google
it.
will pick this up, no doubt, Jennifer.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah,
All
because,
right.
yeah, go ahead.
Here's what I want to know.
Yeah, yeah.
Tell me, tell me someone who, when you think of the phrase inspired or inspiring leader, who is someone that comes to mind for you?
Right off the bat is Sarah Blakely,
Okay.
who is the founder of Spanx
Yeah.
and now Sneaks. Um, and I love that she's really coming out and telling more of her founder story and how she's built, a really healthy culture within her, her company, just her philosophy of how much, branding matters, but also just the consistency builds trust. Um, and you get what you tolerate is something that I really kind of explored with
Okay.
what she was, and that's become, I think, one of my favorite like leadership truths, because culture isn't built by values you write on the wall. Especially, we always know that we've got work to do in a company when the values, we're about trust, integrity, and honesty and transparency. And I always say, let's go deeper than that, because those just look great on a wall.
That's right.
But what do those mean inside of your company?
Yeah.
Because it's, what do leaders, it's like, what you get, what you tolerate. What are you ignoring? What are you rewarding? What conversations are you avoiding? What are you willing to keep around? Because eventually, those unspoken things is what becomes of, well, this is how we do things around here.
That's right. It builds the culture, right?
It builds the culture versus letting it be who we are, what are our values, and then how are those then manifested. And, that's why accountability is kindness.
Yeah, that's right.
Um,
It's a lot. I mean, I'm not suggesting that employees are like children by any means, but leadership within a business is very similar to being a parent, in the sense of, like, if you're consistent and you have, like, here's how I am. I show up the same way day in and day
that's right.
out. The kid knows what to expect, or in leadership, the people who work for you know what to expect,
Yep,
and that builds that trust, right?
that's right. Well, it's like, you know, everybody, it becomes comfort, right? A lot of times, and I've gone through this of like, how do I hold people accountable, especially people that could be family, could be friends that kind of got you or helped you start, was really the hustler that got you where you are. And sometimes those same people can't get you to the next level. So sometimes we avoid, founders and owners, leaders, we avoid accountability, but you've really, like, accountability is truly kindness, because you're setting clear expectations. People perform better when they know exactly what's expected of them, how success is measured, where decisions belong.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives a lot of clarity around that of how am I successful here? How can I be successful? And when you give that clarity, it helps build kind of like that healthy culture.
That's
Don't
good.
avoid, and then that's what we spill into. We said that um, or, organizational psychology matters because businesses aren't spreadsheets.
That's right.
They're human systems. I talk to founders every week, and one of the biggest like aha moments that we hear, a pattern we hear with founders that are scaling and growing and accelerating. They're like, I knew my product or I knew my service and I thought I knew how to build a business. And now I'm in the business of people as I'm scaling. And because it's every organization, it is those unwritten rules. But are those unwritten rules toxic? Or are they positive? Or the emotional patterns of your folks. How are you building trust dynamics? Communication is key. How are you communicating? What's the tone what's the tactics you're using? All of those leaders, if you're going to start a business, start hiring people, human behavior and human patterns, you have to know those. And the leaders that really, really get to understand those human dynamics, those people dynamics, their businesses will outperform other businesses that ignore that or think, I don't need to get into that. I delegate it. Because this is where, this is something that I had to learn, and it's something that I outsourced that authority to somebody and to people thinking, look, I'm working on the business. I'm going to be the visionary. I'll hire people to manage and to lead and to create those dynamics, or to understand. And what I reckon, I was like, oh, if I can delegate it, but I still need to participate in it.
Yeah.
I need to make sure that I'm consistent. Again, you get what you tolerate. So if I'm tolerating things, it's setting a signal for what everybody else can, tolerate. So
That's good. All
yeah.
right, got a couple of comments. Let's
Yeah.
jump in here. So, this is a question from Paul
Yeah.
that I'm going to ask you this question, but just hold on to it for a second because I
Okay.
want to read a couple other comments.
Yeah,
So, Paul wanted to know what would you consider the bridge, or I think I'll try to interpret this, but he
Okay.
says, what is the bridge for a strong personal brand overshadowing your business brand?
Ooh, it's a great question.
Okay, so we'll come
And-
back to that in a second.
Yep.
Ellie just said, it's been to some companies that have values written on the walls, don't see them reflected in the team or their mindset. And Jacob says, paper is patient, or walls in this context. And then Amy Randall says, I used to keep a note on my mirror that said, you get what you settle for, which I think is,
Get what you
that's
tolerate.
a good point.
That's right.
And then Paul had a comment that kind of ties back into the question I'd like to have you answer,
Yeah.
Jennifer. Just says, people recognize me far more than my business, and I feel that does my business and my team a disservice. My team makes me successful, and I make them successful. All right, so why don't you speak to that personal brand,
Yeah.
how that intertwines with company brand
Yeah.
and leadership in particular?
It's and we see this a lot with founder led. I'm going to break it down with looking at it from a brand, right? So branding is an inside job,
Okay.
right? Everyone thinks that branding starts with logos. It does not. Brand is just simply the external expression of your internal clarity. So one, if you're starting a business, growing a business, you really need to have clarity on what the company brand is, right? And when that leadership is aligned, the brand will be aligned. So then how does that then manifest in the visual expression? How is that manifested, website, whatever the visual, the written language, but it's really how is that then aligned internally? Where you show up in that as a founder becomes because as a founder, you also have to have your own personal brand alignment. It's an inside job. Yeah, and what we find is we help founders, like we define this brand, this company brand. It's and here's the go-to-market strategy, and it's this action plan. It's going down this path, and a lot of founders go, whoa, where do I show up then?
Yeah.
And it's like, but you have your own distinct purpose as your personal brand, and I'm sure that there are some parallels of there's things that you can talk about that help lift that brand and how you show up visually, presence. But there's also some things that we take advantage of to go, if there's a founder that's trying to break into, their business is a new product in a new category, it's disrupting. You can use the founder's voice to be a disruptor versus let the brand speak and really move forward and push. But that could be one instance, or it is, how does if the personal brand is, because we see that with a lot of founder-led companies of it's, Jennifer Sutton Designs, right? But Jennifer Sutton Design as a company is still a brand. I just have to figure out how I show up in that. But it's two separate brands. My personal brand is my own brand. It's an inside job. I got to do the homework to figure out what it means, how do I show up, how do I visually express, and how is it distinguished within my company? Because eventually this is where leadership changes as your business grows. We always hear the frame, new level, new devil, right? Because one of the biggest mistakes I think founders make is trying to lead a company, a 50-person company or a 200-person company, from how they led when they were a solopreneur, or when they were 5 people, or when they were 10 people. Each stage, you need to change how you think about, because it's about organizational psychology. What team, your startup team might not be the same as your scale-up team, and might not be the same team as your sustain team. And you, as a founder, have to think about, you're in startup mode, right? Versus now I'm in scale-up mode. Systems matter. My people matter. Um,
Hmm.
because in the beginning, speed is everything, right? Relationships replace systems because everybody knows where everything is. But as you scale, getting alignment, getting clarity, having systems become way more important. And systems, processes, or actions, and those are acts of leadership.
Yeah, that's good. So, um, I get the startup, scale up, those components. I love that.
Yeah.
I feel like those are clear to say from the outside, but when you're in the middle of it, it's not clear when you're in which mode or like when have you transitioned from one to the next, right?
Yeah.
What would you say to a leader? What are they experiencing as a leader that changes between startup? Like how can they identify where they are in that
Yeah,
transition,
because it's
startup
usually
to scale up?
it's not a time frame either. Because
Sure.
we'll see people in startup mode for sometimes decades,
Okay.
or they're in scale up mode for decades.
Yep.
It's really, and that's why it's like, how do you accelerate forward? Have you ever heard of the rule of threes?
No.
In business, that's usually where friction happens the most. So you're a solopreneur, you started your business, and you might have like some part-time people, some fractional folks that come in, and it's when you go from, oh no, I've gone from zero to now I've got 10 people that I'm responsible for. That's usually where, okay, you need to have processes. You need to have systems. You need to have some, like, because now it's just not you being able to oversee everything as a founder owner. So you got to start putting things in place in order to scale to that next level. And it's either people or sometimes revenue drives that. And it's the next three, right? Now you're 30 people. Boom. You've hit it's a new level, new devil. Now it's, okay, now I got to deal with organizational, structure. Am I a matrix? Do I need to have a matrix organization, or do I need to do more of a hierarchy, hierarchical organization? How do I need to meet my market? How do I need to organize the structure? And then you go the next three. Now you're almost 100 people. Boom. Now but it's the rules of three is usually where we see companies facing their biggest like friction points.
Okay.
Or it could be like we've dealt with like a founder company who went from, in 3 years, they went from 0 to 30 million. And they hired, 30 people, they got a staff, and you could say now it's like, okay, there's 3 founders, right, in this, and they're struggling but they have a goal of, in 12 to 15 months, we want to go from 30 million. We want to be 75 million before the end of the year. And we're like, unless you get some structure and training and coaching, you 3 can't be in everything. You guys are, because that's the other thing, the CEO bottleneck or the founder bottleneck is because those founders, you're the engine. But then you become the bottleneck, and now you can't scale. Because it's like, I asked, these guys, I was like, okay, you want to get to this goal. You guys have gone so fast. You've hired all these people, but they don't know how to speak your language, right? You guys are saying, no, nobody can sell like us. I'm sure that, but eventually you got to do a handoff. If you guys brought 10 more client, you need to get 100 new customers in. You guys brought in 5 today. What would happen? They're like, oh, we'd fail. All right. That's where it's, okay, systems, but also coaching, training. You got to develop people to get the CEO out of that day to day.
Yeah, that's really good. All right. I'm going to ask you guys, appreciate the comments you guys are dropping in here. It's been great. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Let's talk to people who they currently work in a business in startup mode.
Yeah.
So they're not the owner, but they're in there. how should they be thinking about becoming leaders within that organization, right? Because
So
we've got a chance. We can see it on the horizon. I'm not always going to be just down here doing the thing. There's a
yeah.
chance that I'm going to have to lead. Walk me through that.
So you're talking about like you're a founder, you've hired staff, and now you're going, okay, do I one as the founder or the owner, you need to make sure that they have, especially if you're in a startup mode, do these people have the right mindset of because small business and startup business is different. It's you're wearing multiple hats. Um, you got to get people that think beyond just well this isn't written in my job description. As you start hiring, you need to be asking questions like, are you going to be okay with there might be days where you might be helping us clean closets, doing weed work, or things that are not in your job description. Are you okay with that? Are you comfortable with stretching yourself, right? And pushing on that, right? So it's hiring. Make sure you have the right like mindset person, because small business and startup is not for everybody because it's
That's right.
chaotic, right? You don't have systems in place.
Yeah.
And we've seen where like founders have hired people I would call from like big businesses, big corporate Googles, the Apples, and spending a lot of money of getting somebody that they're hoping that they'll help them grow, and they come in there and they fail because they are shocked at, oh my God, I've never had to build a system before. I've never had to figure out how to build a process or to expand their leadership capability of how can you lead the team, and not everybody is built for that. So it's hiring the right person first, and then when you get them in. So to answer your question, like when you get them in there, how do you train? It's a mental muscle. We call it momentum moves. And momentum mapping of how do we get the team all thinking of in their own role, but looking at the bigger picture of the company of, guys, we're trying to get from point A to point B. What are all things that we can do? What are actions that are daily or this week that will get us? What are 5 momentum moves that you can do today that gets us closer to that goal? And so you really have to work in that small team framework because it might be you're building an operational or a workflow, or you might be cold calling, or you might be cleaning out a closet.
That
You know,
one's on your mind this week because of the work going on at
I
your
know we're
place.
doing like internal like reflect, but it is. So when we sit down with companies too of like, now we've defined the brand, we've defined the go-to-market strategy. Now, how do we bring everybody together to build and accelerate? And everybody thinks of you got to get people to think outside of their task or activity and think of themselves as, how do I build momentum? And that then helps them as an individual go, oh, I lead, because leadership isn't a title. Everybody is a lead from their seat, no matter where they sit
That's right.
in the organization. And so we coach on that of, just because you don't have, I'm the owner or this like big title, you still lead.
That's right. All right.
Okay.
Those are good. Those are really good. I've asked for some questions from
Okay.
the audience. Here's what's fun is we're going to take a little pivot. We're going to take a little turn
Ooh, okay.
because people want to talk brand.
Oh, my favorite.
That's
Okay.
kind of your fun, your sweet spot there, right? So Jacob Schweiger, do you know Jacob?
I don't know if I do.
He's
Do
a
I know you,
great person.
Jacob? Okay.
He's a great person to know. So you guys definitely connect on LinkedIn hereafter. So Jacob says, what is the most important thing to consider when creating a brand? And then a follow-up question, how do you actually create a brand?
Oh, so
And I think he has a reason for asking if I'm not mistaken.
okay. Is he coming from the creative camp?
So he's got a business. So he's a consultant, Bright Path Consulting.
Okay.
He's got two different like things that he does,
Okay.
but they're around people and data. And I know that he's working. You know Nathan Robinson
Yeah.
at Show Off. He's been talking to Nathan about some of
Okay.
this, so I know it's on kind of top of mind for him. So go
Yeah.
ahead.
So how do you start with branding? So we start with we call brand therapy is our
Okay.
process. And I always say the visual, logo, any kind of design work is last
Yeah.
in our process. It's the last thing that we do. So we really uncover what's the vision, how to leaders, whether it's, because we come in sometimes not just necessarily with found startups, we come in with like refreshes, relaunches, rebrands, like mid-market legacy brands. So we really try to understand how do the leaders make decisions?
Yeah.
What is the culture like? Kind of that organizational psychology. Where do we want to be? Who do we want to be? What's the voice and tone? Do we want to be that corporate, voice, or are we trying to be fun and playful? So kind of just uncovering all of where do we want to be 10, 20, 30 years from now, 50, like what's the change that we're trying, what's the impact that we're trying to have?
Yeah.
Because that leads the brand,
Yeah.
right? And brand is really uncovering, I call it the what message, the so what,
Yeah.
and defining that and getting really clear about who we are, what we are, and how we're impacting, the industry, the category, or whatever we're in. When we go into then how do we create design, that becomes into then I call it that goes into like that marketing mode of how is then it then manifested visually? How does that look? And what we find is we really have to, especially with mid-market legacy brands, we work a lot around organizational psychology of how are we going to then agree upon this logo, this mark, so that, when we give them 2 or 3 options, that we're all aligned in how we're going to make decisions.
That's interesting. Yeah, you lay the foundation.
We lay that foundation because it explodes. You get into somebody and it becomes, I don't like this.
That's right.
Or I want to like this. And that's usually us. That's a red flag of we need to take a step back and talk about decision framing, because it shouldn't be about, well, I like this one better than this one. It should be, no, this one serves our purpose. This one meets the strategy because of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And that's how we want, so when we serve up logos, which again is we've already got agreement on what their vision statement is. We've got agreement on, what's their positioning line. We've already got agreement on how they want to show up from a voice and a tone. We've all aligned on that, right? We've all agreed on this is our competitive advantage. We've all agreed on this is the messaging matrix of how we show up and how do we want to talk to this audience, versus this audience versus this audience. If we have multiple products, how do these multiple products show up in this bigger brand architecture? So we've already discussed all of that. It's all on paper. We've all checked the boxes of that. We are all in alignment. So when we serve up logos and the looks and how is that manifested, like on a homepage of a website or a an ad, like a campaign. Most of the times, if we've done all of the alignment right, we get give them 3 options. Usually there's one that's like, yes, that's it. Or we love all 3.
Right.
Or like here's the tagline. Oh, that tagline nails it. We know, when we get into leadership issues, when we serve up logos and it's like, I don't know which one I like. Which one does everybody else like? Which one do you think our board will like?
Yep.
And it's like, that's when we got to take a step back. then we don't have alignment.
Yeah.
There's some strategic reason, because it shouldn't be about, well, can we see this in red versus blue? When they start getting like those micro management of, well, do you like then we don't want to become a company's wrist.
Yeah.
That's what we call, in the agency days of, we don't want to have just like our art director being somebody sitting over them to going, can you make that line different?
That's right.
Or, all of that.
Okay.
So it's all about making sure that we're just bringing to life. And then, we've got our art director. You can go into the whole, the visualization of, there's a lot of math involved. There's a lot of, we do our homework on what's going to give us authority in our space, what's going to make us look unique and distinctive, what can we own from a look in our space.
Yeah.
And then what's going to be sustainable in the smallest of size to the biggest of size, but also what's going to sustain us from a visual perspective, because it becomes down to math of the spacing, the kerning, all of those, too many colors, dates, things. If you have literal expression, that those logos get dated very quickly.
Yep.
So I mean, those are some of there's some frameworks, best practices around logo building, but to us, it's really about that's the easy part a little bit. It's the how do we get alignment and make sure that the team, whoever is deciding, that they're deciding for the right reasons, not the subjective ones.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
All right. I could talk to you all day long, but I've committed to this show being 30 minutes.
Oh, yeah. We're already over. Yeah.
This has been great. So I went ahead and put your company, gobrightnow.com, in here. How else would you like people to connect with you if they want to know more about you and your business?
Yeah. Well, I'm super active on LinkedIn, so
Okay.
engage with me there.
Okay.
You can send emails to hello@gobrightnow.com or
Okay.
just send Jennifer@gobrightnow.com.
Okay.
Can I give a lasting,
Please.
closing thing?
Yeah.
Of one thing I will say, leadership isn't about having all the answers. And if you follow me, you'll know that I always say curiosity it's our competitive advantage, but I think it's any company's competitive advantage. Of the best leaders always ask better questions. And so leadership isn't about being the smartest person in the room. And a company's growth and scalability and acceleration is always going to be limited by the leadership skills and the growth of the leaders, the company owners, the founders, or the expanded leadership. The market will not cap a business. The leaders will.
Yeah. That's great.
So the more curious you are, the better advantage you will have.
That's awesome. Jennifer, I'm so grateful that you took some time to be with us today. This has been great.
Absolutely. Thank you.
It's been a lot of fun. All right. For those of you watching, I appreciate you engaging. This has been a lot of fun. And you guys, you kept me focused on the conversation. So it's a win. There we go. You guys have a great day. Thanks again for being with us.